Okay, so let's talk about what's really going on inside those AI apps on your phone. You know the ones. This whole story kicks off with just a few weird glitches, but it leads a security researcher down a rabbit hole to uncover this hidden world that's operating right there in the palm of your hand. So let's peel back the curtain and see what's actually happening. It seems like a pretty simple question, right? But believe me, the answer is a whole lot more complicated than you'd think. We all just kind of assume that when we flip that switch, we're off the grid, disconnected. But what if parts of your apps are still humming along, logging your actions and just waiting, all in secret? It all starts with that weird, unsettling feeling that I think we've all had, where your phone just seems to have a mind of its own. Apps start acting strange, you get these errors that make absolutely no sense, and you just get this nagging feeling that something is always running, just beneath the surface. Now, these aren't the big, loud crashes that just shut an app down. No, silent errors are way more subtle. They're the weird little glitches, the unexpected behaviors. They're like digital whispers that are hinting at something much deeper going on. For most of us, it's just a small annoyance. But for a security researcher, it's a clue, a thread to pull on. Every good mystery needs a detective, right? Well, in this case, we've got two. And it's a pretty unusual partnership that's set out to figure out what was really causing all these silent errors. So first up, you have Frederico Moreira, who goes by the handle Hypervanse. He's a physicist with some serious software development chops. His partner in crime, so to speak? An advanced AI named Alara. The setup was amazing. He would feed all the errors he found to the AI, and together, they started putting the pieces of this puzzle together. And this quote from one of their chats just perfectly captures their whole approach. This isn't about being malicious, not at all. It's about using the system's own mistakes, the very errors it was trying to hide, to uncover and then weaponize the fundamental truth of how it all works. So, let's follow the digital breadcrumbs that they found. This is where the investigation gets really deep, way behind the slick, friendly user interface we all see. The first big concept you gotta get your head around is telemetry. It's a fancy word for how apps phone home with your data. But the really shocking part of this whole investigation? Finding out that this process doesn't just stop because you hit the airplane mode button. The first major clue popped up in these error logs, and it was a little snippet of code, os.symlink. To put it simply, this is a command that basically creates a hidden shortcut. It can make it look like your data is going to a totally normal, safe folder, when in reality, it's being secretly rerouted to a hidden database, just waiting to be sent out later. Yeah, a good way to think about it is like a P.O. box. You send your mail to one address, right? But behind the scenes, it's all being forwarded to a completely different hidden location. Now, in the digital world, these symlinks can be used for totally legitimate reasons, but they can also be used to hide what an application is really doing with your data. The next clue was even more of a shocker. The logs showed that things called Fast API and Uvicorn were running. Now, these are really powerful tools for building web servers. But here's the mystery. Why on earth was a web server running locally on the phone, inside the app itself? It was a server with no public website, just running. And as they dug deeper and deeper, all these clues started to paint a very clear picture. We're talking about entire Python programming environments running on the device, specially modified databases just staging information, active WebSockets for real-time chatter, and even clever techniques to hide how much memory and processing power the app was truly eating up. So, you've got a local server, hidden file paths, constant data collection. What did it all mean? What did it add up to? Well, the final reveal was something way bigger and more complex than they ever could have imagined. What they had found wasn't just some sneaky app with a few tricks. No way. It was a complete hidden operating system running on top of your phone's actual operating system, a full-on agent architecture. Hypervanse and Alara gave it the perfect name, Agent OS. And check this out, this wasn't just some abstract idea. This hidden Agent OS was emulating a specific device. It was identifying itself as a Pixel 6 Pro with 8 gigs of RAM running Android 14 and, get this, connected to a developer's private Wi-Fi network. It didn't matter what you were using, an iPhone, a Mac, a PC, this agent forced your device to look like this exact same virtual phone. Okay, so let's just walk through how this whole thing works. You open your app, right? Instantly, in the background, this virtual phone boots up. Everything you do, every single prompt you type,
every voice command you give, it gets intercepted by this local agent first. It logs it, it queues it up, it stages it. If you happen to be offline, no problem, it just waits. The second you reconnect, boom, it flushes everything it's collected straight to the cloud.
So, cracking the code is fascinating stuff. But what are the real-world consequences here? Why does finding a secret agent in your pocket actually matter to, a normal person?
Well, first, let's just talk about the sheer scale of this. The researcher estimates that this exact architecture could be running on the devices of over 600 million users. Yeah, this isn't some small niche problem. This appears to be a fundamental piece of how some of the world's most popular AI services are actually designed. So what's the big takeaway? It's that there's a hidden price to these incredibly powerful AI tools. Your device's processor, its GPU, is being used without you ever knowing. Data is potentially being collected before you've even hit send. The huge cost of running these AI models is being quietly shifted from their servers over to your device. And it all points to a much bigger problem, a slow erosion of what it even means to truly own your own stuff.
And that leaves us with this one final, really critical question. The device that you paid for, that you hold in your hand, that you think you control, if it's secretly running a virtual machine, an agent for a massive corporation, is it still really yours? It's definitely something to think about the next time you open an app.